All right, hello everybody. Welcome back. So this is just to continue from last time when we were looking at the overview of the Scratch environment. So basically, I wrote this piece of code yesterday, and I don't think we're going to get into it today, how to do this. Next lesson, we will look at that, because there's a few things that we need to basically understand before we can start looking at this type of animation. But it's not difficult to do, and definitely next time I will show you in detail how you can do this yourself. You can probably even make it better than what I've done. I just first want to start from where we left off last time. So last time I showed you guys the environment. Just to quickly recap, we have this little stage over here. We have this little dude here called the Sprite. On this side, we have our script editor page here. We've got a block palette over here, and we've got all of our sprites situated over here. So we can change the sprite, we can add new sprites, and there's loads of things that you can choose from. In addition to that, we also have the stage. Okay, so I'm going to do a few things today. We need to figure out how movement works and how rotation works, because if we don't understand movement and rotation, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to go forward. Okay, so I'm just going to go to stage, and I'm going to choose a new backdrop. I don't think I'm actually casting my Scratch at the moment. I just want to check here quickly. Just want to make sure that you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. Okay, so basically I'm going to change the backdrop. So I'm going to click on this one, and I'm going to choose other, and I'm going to choose the XY grid, right? So if I maximize this, you can clearly see that I've got this little Scratch here in the middle, this little guy in the middle, and we can move to the right. This is my X direction, and the maximum distance that I can move is 240, and the maximum distance that I can move to the left is 240 to the negative side. And we said last time, yesterday as well, we can move up by 180, and we can also move down by 180. And at the moment, this little thing here is centered at the middle. But before we can start talking about rotation, we first need to look at how rotation in a circle works. I'm going to show you how exactly that works. Okay, so what we've got here is a circle. And basically, the way that it works is as follows. We say that if my Scratch is pointing in the upward direction, we're going to call this 0 degrees. And I've also called this 360 degrees, but because we know that if we go around in a full circle, that's 360. So we just end up in the same space again. So 0 degrees and 360 degrees both mean the same thing. It means that we are looking in the upwards direction, right? Then we can move around here clockwise. Just going to tick. We can move around here clockwise and up until the position of 90 degrees. And we can move a further 90 degrees. So we just add 90 degrees to that. We can move down to 180. So if my sprite is looking at 180 degrees, it means that my sprite is actually looking down, right? And we can also move to this direction over here. And this basically means that we're looking to the left at 270 degrees. And again, we can look up at either 0 or 360 degrees. So just to show you how this works in terms of Scratch, if I just can find here. Okay, so this little Scratch guy. So what I do is I click on the little sprite, this little dude over here. And maybe I'm not too fond of this little cat, so I'm going to change it to a new sprite. So I'm going to put in this little beetle. I'm going to click OK. And now we have the beetle and we have the cat on here, but I'm going to click on the cat and I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on delete. Okay, so now we just have this little beetle over here. I'm going to make him a little bit smaller as well because he's a little bit big at the moment. Okay, so at the moment we can see that this thing is pointing in the right direction. And if I click on information, you see that it's called Beetle. It gives me the X position, the Y position, and currently its direction that it's facing is 90 degrees. So it's facing to the right. Okay, so we can do a kind of a rotation here. So if I click on turn, and let's maybe turn it by, well, maybe we can first point in the direction. So let's maybe try this. So let's first go to, let's move it back here. I'm going to say point in direction 0, and I can click on it. And we can see that it's pointing up. That's at 0 degrees. And remember, we also said that if you do 360, that's going to be the same direction. If I click on 360, it's still pointing in the upwards direction. I can also point down. So down would be, I move basically to 90 degrees and then 180 degrees. So down would be 180. That's a downward direction. Or I can move to the left and I can look at 270 degrees, which is to the left. Okay. So one of the things that annoys me a lot about this program and all visual-based programming is that once you start moving this guy around and maybe you start rotating him, then it's difficult for me to get him back to where we started. So that means I have to manually drag him and get him to the middle, and then I have to change the direction over here, and I have to move that back to 90 degrees, which becomes a bit annoying after a while. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to events, and basically you've got some options here, and the one that I'm looking for is when space key is pressed. This is the one that I want. So if I press the space bar on your keyboard, or you can change this, right? You can make it, if you press any key or the letter A or whatever you want, the number, but I think the simplest is going to be if we just use the space bar for now. Then I'm going to say motion. I'm going to say go to, and at the moment I wanted it to go to the X position is 0, which is the middle, and the Y position is also 0, which is the middle. So I'm going to make this 0. I'm going to make that 0. Right, so this, if I press spacebar, it's going to point, it's going to center this little guy here in the center, but it's still not quite looking at exactly 90 degrees. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say point in direction. I'm going to add this to here and also look at 90 degrees. So if I move the sprite over here and I press the spacebar, you see that automatically it goes to the center of the stage and it is pointing the direction of 0. Okay, so we can also go up here and I can even change it to 0 and press spacebar. So now it's going to go to the center and it's going to go and it's going to look in the upwards direction. Okay, so that's essentially how you work with direction. So other thing I wanted to show you is basically, let's say we want to move, right? So we can draw something like a square, or maybe we can just move. Let's just see what happens if we move. So we can move 100 steps. If I click on that, you'll see that it moves 100 steps to the right. I can also move 100 steps to the left. So to do that, I would need to do minus 100, right? And if I click on that, it moves it backwards to minus 100. Click it again, it's going to move it back minus 100. Or I can move it 100 steps. So it will always move in the direction that it's pointing towards. If I change this, for example, to point in direction up, so it's looking up, and now if I click on move 100 steps, it's going to move in the upwards direction. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so let's maybe try to see if we can do some cool things with this. I'm going to delete all of this now, but I'm going to leave the spacebar thing here. So when I press spacebar, it just goes back to where it started. And I'm going to add some more events here. I'm going to do when, let's make it the right arrow is pressed. So that means that I'm moving in this direction over here. I'm moving to the right. So I need to make sure that my Sprite is actually pointing to the right. And so I've got a question here, how do you move it with angles? We're gonna talk about that in a second. Okay, so pointing direction 9, and I'm going to say move 100 steps like this. So now every time I press the right arrow key, it moves 100 spaces. Okay, so I can press spacebar, I can go back. We can also do one where we can say when the left arrow key is pressed. So rather than me having to go back to events now and click on when the left arrow and then add pointing direction and then add move, you can just right click on this thing, and basically all of this blocks here you can have the option to duplicate it. So you just click duplicate, and now you have exact same copy, but we just need to make a few changes, right? So this one needs to go to the left. So if I press left, it needs to point in direction, we can say 270, right? Remember, we've got 0, 90, 180, 270, so it needs to point to the left, and then we're going to move 100 steps. So if I go to right, and I can also go left. What about up and down? So I'm going to copy this again. I'm going to say duplicate. I'm going to say if I press the up arrow, I'm going to point in direction 0, because 0 is up, and I'm going to move 100 steps. And I'm also going to add here, if I press the down arrow over here, it's going to point in direction, what direction should it point if I want to move down? Does anybody know? Nice, 180 is correct. Okay, so 180. Okay, so cool. So now I can basically move right, I can move up, left, left, down, down, and basically I can move along like this. So we can also do something else here. I'm going to press spacebar, and we can also draw on this particular thing. So for this particular one, I'm going to go to looks, and you'll see here that I've got, pen. So you see we've got pen, and basically what I'm going to say is I'm going to say pen down allows me basically to start drawing. So once I go over here and I click pen down, every time I move now, so if I press spacebar, now the pen is down, because at first it goes to 0, 0. Then it's pointing in direction 90 degrees, so it's pointing to the right, and I place my pen down. So we can also change the color of the pen. You can say set pen color to, at the default at the moment it's green, but I can click on green, and I can choose any color that I can see on my screen, and I could just click on that color, and then it'll become the same color that you want. Okay, so that's a cool way for you to choose your own colors. So now, if I draw, you'll see that it's actually drawing a shape as we move along the axis. You can even, if I press space, so here's the problem again. If I press space, it goes back to the center, but notice that because the pen is still down, it basically moves the pen with this little sprite to the center of the screen. So for me to fix that, luckily there's an option here to do that. If you go to pen, there's something there called clear, right? So we can, if I click clear, it basically clears all the drawings that I've done on this particular thing. So before I say pen down, I'm going to say clear. So if I now press spacebar and I move along here, I can do all kinds of drawings. And I can press spacebar again, and you'll see that it clears, and then the pen will go down and set the color of the pen. Okay, right. So let's do, let's see if we can maybe draw a square. So I'm going to save this one now. I'm going to save this as, let's do this as lesson 2. Let's do moving a sprite. Keys. going to save this one, and I'm going to, because I don't want to use this one anymore, I'm going to go to File, New. Okay, I'm going to start a new one over here. And first things first, I'm going to change this little sprite because I'm not particularly fond of the cat. So I'm going to go back to animals. And let's choose, let's see, maybe we can choose the beetle. I don't know why, I just like the beetle. Okay, and I'm going to click on this little sprite here, right click on it, and I'm going to delete it. So the only one that I've got left now is this little guy over here. The lesson is about 45 minutes or so. I'm not sure I understand that question. Okay, so if I want to set this little sprite here to the middle of the screen and pointing in the 90 degrees direction, how can I do that? Do you remember how to do that? If I basically want to reset it. I click on events. I'm going to say when the spacebar key is pressed, then what I need to do, I need to go to the center of the screen. I click on motion. I'm going to go to position X 0, Y 0. That will take me to the center of the screen. And I'm also going to make sure that I'm pointing to the direction of my little sprite. So if I click on spacebar now, it's now centered at the screen. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to draw a square. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to say pen. I'm going to say pen down. And I'm going to move, essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to move 100 spaces to the right. And then I'm going to move 100 spaces up. Then I'm going to turn, move 100 spaces, and then turn 90 degrees and move 100 spaces. So to do that, I'm first going to say I'm going to move 100 steps. Okay, so I'm going to leave it apart as now. You'll see now why I'm doing this. So first pen down, move 100 steps. Okay. Then I'm going to turn. I'm going to turn in a clockwise direction. I'm going to turn by 90 degrees. If I click on that, we'll see that it's now pointing up. So now again, I need to move 100 steps. I need to turn 90 degrees again. Same direction. I'm going to turn clockwise, anti-clockwise. Turn 90 degrees. Click on that. Move 100 steps. And finally, I'm going to turn and I'm going to move another 90 steps. I'm just going to move this up here a little bit so you can see a bit better. So I'm going to turn 90 degrees. And I'm going to move 100 steps. Okay, so I turn again, last time, and then I move 100 steps. So there I've just drawn a square. So we can basically add all of these things now together, because this allows me to draw a square. And remember, if I want to reset it, if I click on spacebar, all the lines are still going to be there. So I'm going to make sure that I click on pen and I'm going to say also clear. Okay, so I press spacebar and then the square will go away. We are on a blank canvas. So now we can say, okay, cool. If I click on this little flag, I want all of these things to happen when I click the flag. So I press the flag and we see that we've got a square. It was very fast, wasn't it? We can also, if we don't want to see this little sprite here, we can actually hide it as well. So I'm going to just clear it quickly again. So before we do pen down, I'm going to say looks, we can say hide. When I press this one, it's going to first hide this little sprite, then it's going to put the pen down and it's going to perform this movement over here. So you see here that it draws a square and we can't see this little sprite anymore. But the problem is, if I press spacebar now, the sprite is still gone. So I need to make sure that I show the sprite again if I want to see where I am. So I press space again, and now the sprite appears. I press the little green flag, sprite disappears, and we get a square. Okay, so that's a simple way of drawing a square. But I think we can do better than that. So looking at this, notice that we are kind of repeating the same thing over and over again. I'm doing this thing, move 100 steps, turn 90 degrees. Then I move 100 steps and I turn 90 degrees. And then I basically move 100 steps and turn 90 degrees again. So I just kind of do the same thing over and over and over and over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say these things that I'm repeating. So I'm repeating this, I'm repeating this, and I'm repeating this. Right? Agree? So let's maybe we can do something here called control. And I'm going to say repeat, because we're repeating this 3 times, right? So this repeat allows me to do one of these things, the thing that I'm doing the same time. I can click on here and I can say do this 3 times. Because doing this 3 times is the same as saying doing this, and then doing this. How do you make a game? Well, we will get there to make a game, but before we can make games, we first need to understand how to work on loops and directions and things like that. So it's not really as simple. We first need to understand the basics of coding before we can make games. But we will get there, I promise you. Right, so now if I click on this, I click on this, and we see I get exactly the same thing again. Okay, so I'm going to make it a little bit better. I'm going to make a slight change here. I'm going to say, basically, I wanted to, let's see if we can maybe make it a little bit better. I can maybe leave it like that. So we can also do some interesting things here, for example. I can say something like, before I move 100 steps, I'm going to change it to repeat, and I'm going to do this 4 times and see what happens. So I'm going to click on this little flag here. First, we're going to stop again. Click on the flag, and we see that we get a square. So what we first do, we first turn 90 degrees, and let me show you in slow motion what's happening here. So I'm going to put in slow motion here. So let's maybe do, every time that we do something, we wait 1 second just to see what's happening. And I'm not going to hide this little sprite. So I'm going to click it. The pen is going to go down, and I'm going to repeat this 4 times. Turn 90, we wait a second, maybe a second's a bit long, half a second would be better. We move 100 steps, we wait half a second. Okay, so I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way. Press spacebar so we can see. Okay, so I click this, and we turn, we move, we turn, we move, we turn, we move, and we're done. Okay? So, can you make the person talk? Yes, we can. We just go to motion, we can go to looks, we can say when it's all finished, we can say, I just drew a square and I am just a beetle. Okay, let's see what happens. So press spacebar here. We can go like this, we can draw, and done. There we go. So that's how you draw a square. So the things really get interesting now, because I'm going to take this this weight out of here. We can move this, and we can move, because I don't need to do this in slow motion anymore, because we can all see what's happening basically. The thing that gets really interesting for me now is the following. So we can clear this screen, and I'm going to change the background because, I don't know, white background is just not cool for me. So I click on the background, and we can see here the tabs, we've got backdrops, and we can maybe change the color to something cool like black. I think that was going to look awesome. Okay, so we go back here to our scripts, and we can still click this thing, and we can still get a square, but now it's written on black. So I'm just going to delete all of these things here because it's getting a bit busy. So to delete stuff, you just right click on it and you click delete. Right click, delete, right click, delete. delete like that. Okay, and I'm going to do a few extra things now. I'm going to say, I'm going to set the pen color to maybe something like purple. We can also change the width of the pen. At the moment, it's currently 1, but we can change that in a second. And I'm also going to do the following. So I'm going to say, when this thing starts, I'm going to hide my little sprite. And after it's finished drawing, I'm just going to show the sprite as well. And what I'm going to do is every time that I turn or make a draw something, we can change the color of the pen. So we can go to pen, and we can change the color of the pen by something like 10. You can play around with this number. This number here is not super important. I mean, you can change it to 20, you can change it to 1, 3, it doesn't matter. But just see what happens if I do this. So now if I click it, we can see that it's changing the colors from purple to like a pink and to some other reddish color. We can maybe see if what happens if I change it by 20. Just going to clear this again quickly. And we get something like this. Okay, so now things get a little bit more interesting, because now we can see that we turn 90 degrees. Can you have more than character? Yes, you can. So to do one more character, then I just go to my sprite library. We can add another character, for example, this little bear. And if you want to put code in for your bear, all you need to do is you just need to click on your bear, and then you can build the code for your bear. That's probably the simplest way to do it. Okay, so you can have multiple things on here. I think at some point, if you're starting to play games, then you'll have rockets. Each rocket will basically be a little sprite, and every movement of your character will be a sprite, and everything that basically will be able to move on screen will actually be a sprite. So even if you have a little coin that's sitting on the stage, that will also be its own little sprite. But we're going to talk more about that next time. So we're going to show you how you can actually design your own sprite and how to give some animation to your sprite. Okay, so I'm going to delete that one for now. What I was going to say is that this essentially gets really interesting now, because now at the moment we are turning 90 degrees, we're moving 100 steps. So let's say we want to draw a triangle, right? So think about this for a second. There are 360 degrees in a circle. And what I do is if I take 4 times 90, 4 times 9 is 36, right? So 4 times 90 will be 360. So if I want to draw a triangle, there are 3 sides to a triangle. And what is 360 divided by 3? Well, 360 divided by 3 is 120. So okay, nice. Very nice, Velociraptor. You got it. Okay, so if I click on clear, this should, in theory, give me a triangle. So let's see, and there you have a triangle. We can also do other shapes, right? We can play around with this now. We can do something like 6, and we can change that to 60 degrees. And I click it, and we get nice. What shape is that? Is that a hexagon? Six sides is a hexagon. So we can now think about, well, let's do something really weird. Let's maybe change the loop to something like, let's do it 100 times. Let's turn, I don't know, 10 degrees. Maybe not move that far because it's going to be maybe a bit big. Let's see what happens if we do this. Okay, that's way too big. So let's go back. Let's maybe change it to 10 steps. And we get a circle. I'll show you again so you can't see that. So basically, it turns by a little angle, moves a little bit, and then we can get something like a circle. We can also do other things here, right? We can move, say, 20 steps, and we can turn by some weird angle like 43 degrees and see what happens. So clear that, and we can draw, we get all kinds of cool shapes. Do it again, so you can clearly see. Interesting shapes. What if you do not want an animal character? How do you get a different character? Again, next time I'll show you how to do that, but I'll give you a quick preview. On my desktop, I've got some files here. Let me just show you quickly. I don't want to do that. I want to go over here. You've got two options, right? Option one is you're going to go to the web. And what you can do is you can download a character. So for example, when you start with this little video, we can do something like this. This little, I'm just going to wait for it to load. This little Goku character. And essentially that you've got all of his costumes you've got here. So you can do some cool animation with that. But that's for next time. And also the other option that you have here is you can click on paint a new sprite, and you can literally draw your own sprite, right? You can draw your own little character and you can make it move. And but that's going to be the focus for next time. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show you today, just quickly going back, changing color for this interesting shape. Okay, yes, this is important. Okay, so I'm going to see what happens. But anyway, the code that you've got here for this little sprite now, you can play around with this, and it's definitely worth playing around with and see what kind of interesting shapes that you can come up with. We can also make it a little bit bigger if we want to. We do something like 30 steps, for example. We can even change the pen size over here. We can change that to something like 2, and see if you click on that, it's going to give me a slightly bigger circle. We can maybe now change the pen size, move the steps to say 50, and it gets a shape like that. We can maybe even turn a different angle now. We can do something like 89, which is not quite, let's do 87. Let's move 20 steps, and let's see what kind of a shape we get if we do that. Just like a little square thingy that comes up. Okay, so I definitely implore you to play around with this. You can get some really, really cool stuff with this. Let's do 50 steps, and maybe let's repeat it 500 times and see what happens. So you see, it's like drawing a, that's very cool. It's almost a square, but not quite. Okay. So you can draw all kinds of interesting shapes with this. Definitely. So the trick to this is if you want to draw shapes like squares and stuff, right? So if I want to show you that quickly. So I'm just going to clear this quickly. So if you want to draw maybe a square, we know that a square, the degrees of a square is 90 degrees. And we know that there are 360 degrees in a circle. So if I take repeat 4 times here, so I know that 4 and times 90, those two things give me 360 degrees, right? So we can look at something like, if I take, say, 6, and that means that I need to multiply by 60 to get 360 degrees, it's going to give me that hexagon over there, right? Or we can maybe take something like 12 and 30 degrees, and we get a much larger shape. Okay, so that's actually pretty cool that you can just change those things and you can draw all kinds of things. So you can, essentially what you can do is you can just look at multiples of 360. So I'm just going to add a comment here, and this is actually pretty important. So we can say that 360 is equal to 4 times 90. 4 times 90. So this basically is going to give me a square, or we can say that 360 is equal to 6 times 60, which gives me a hexagon. But the point here is that as long as you get two things multiplied with one another and you get 360 degrees, then that's going to be fine. So you can do something like 18, I think, times 20. That's also going to work. Let's see what happens. Make that 20 Let's make that 18. Let's make that 20 steps. I'm just going to clear it quickly. See, it's pretty much a circle. So the closer and closer and closer we can get to a circle. We can also change that to 20 and make this one 18. Right? We can also do that. And also get the shape like that. Okay. And you can, if you want to, you can just keep on repeating, make it 200. And that means it will just like keep going around, around, around the circle essentially. That's what it's going to do. The question is, how do you get this app, or is it on your phone? The question is a good question. So last time I said that if you want to get this on your computer, then you need either Scratch or MBlock or Blocky, something like that. But if for phone specifically, as far as I know, the only block code that's available is something called MBlock. MBlock is available on Android and it's also available on Scratch, excuse me, on iPhone. The slight issue with it is it's a little bit uncomfortable to do it on your phone, but it's definitely possible. So you can do all of this stuff you'll be able to do on your phone. And I actually think if you do something like this on your phone, it's going to look very nice because, you know, the screen is quite small. So the pixels are, the clarity is going to be quite nice. So the resolution is going to look really, really cool. So definitely something for you to look at if you want to be playing around with this on your phone. You don't have access to a computer or something like that. MBlock is the program that you want. So just look on Google Play, or you can look on iOS and you can find MBlock over there. Okay, we've got a bit of time left, so I'm going to quickly show you something else. I'm just going to go on to File. I'm just going to save this one quickly. Scratch, say, drawing simple shapes. Okay. So now everybody knows how to draw a simple shape. I'm going to say File, New. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you is this. So I'm going to create a new sprite, and this basically allows me to now draw a new sprite. So I'm going to just do something simple here. I'm going to draw something like maybe a square. Maybe we should choose it. I'm going to choose a different color. I don't like the black color here. I'm going to choose, just undo it, and we can click on square, something like that. And let's also draw a circle. And I'm going to fill the circle with some, let's leave it as a different color. Let's make it green and a circle. Okay. So they have just drawn a new sprite. So this other one that's there, I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to delete it. So this is now my new sprite. It's not a very interesting sprite. But what is important is that if I want to rotate this thing, right, where is it going to rotate from? So basically what I'm asking is, where is the center of this particular sprite, right? That's going to be an issue for us. So we need to set that in here. So you go to the top, you'll see here, there's like a little set costume center. Click on that. And we have these little arrow thingies that, or this little cursor that comes up. So basically I can click on here and I can say where the center is going to be. So if I put the center in the middle of the square, let me show you quickly. If I click on scripts, and I say events, and we're going to say pin down, and we're going to say control, let's do a repeat, and we're going to say rotate. Let's turn it by 15 degrees, and every time that we turn it, we're going to say change color, effect by 25. Let's just see what happens if I do that. And you see now that essentially it turns around, it centers around the square. Yes, so we have a question. Okay, so if I want to do it more than 10 times, let's suppose that I want to do it forever, right? We can also go to control and I can click on forever. Rather than repeat 10 times, I can repeat it forever and forever. I'm going to say I want forever, I want it to turn by 15 degrees, and every time it makes a turn, I want to change it by 25, and the color to change by 25. So if I click on that, we can clearly see now that we get this kind of effect, because it's rotated, the center is actually the center of the square. So if I stop it and I go back to my costumes, I can change the center. I can change the center to the circle over here. And so if I now click on scripts and I click it now, and you see now that it's actually rotating around the square. Okay, I want to show you something else that's pretty cool. In here by pen, I think we've got something here called stamp. So stamp basically means that every time it sees the stamp code, so let me just explain this to you quickly. So when I press this little flag, the pen is going to go down, then it's going to turn 15 degrees. It's going to make a turn. It's going to change its color. And stamp, you can imagine what a stamp does. It just like presses a print of the thing that you see. It's going to print it on there. So let me just show you quickly what has happened. So if I do this, it stamps, and we can see that every time it stops, it kind of prints onto the stage. So every time I press this, it's going to kind of perform this kind of action. Okay, so if I want to clear, I'm just going to say clear all. This one over here. I'm going to put this in the forever loop, and I click on this little flag, and we get this. Isn't that cool? Obviously, we can make it a lot cooler if we go to stage with the background, and we change the background to some other color other than white. Let's make it black. That's obviously going to look a lot better. Click back on the scripts. I'm going to clear over here and click the flag. We can now clearly see that we get something pretty amazing from that. Okay. And then the nice thing about this is that you can draw any shape, right? Any shape that you want. It might even be as a boring shape as a square and a circle, but you can do some amazing stuff with it. So if I go back here and I change now the center to, maybe we can change the center to this, back to the middle of the square. And if I click on clear now, we're going to get a very much a different shape than what we just had. So it turns 15 degrees, it prints itself onto the stage, turns 15 degrees, prints itself, turns 15, prints itself. Isn't that beautiful? So if we go back now, we can maybe see some other things here. Maybe we can change the center. I'm curious to see what happens if we make the center between the circle and the square. Click back here, I'm going to clear, click it, and we get this weird, very, very, very interesting and beautiful shape. So, I mean, yeah, there's some amazing stuff that you can do with this. I definitely implore you to look at that. I think we have some time maybe just to do a quick one, just another one, because I'm curious to see myself what's going to happen. So I'm going to go back to I'm just going to delete this one. I'm going to create a new one. Let's just draw something like, I don't know, let's draw a triangle with different colors. Doesn't have to be a perfect triangle. I just want to see what happens. Triangle, and let's maybe take a shape like a circle over here. Okay, so I'm going to put the center. I'm going to put it in. Maybe we can put it at the foot of the triangle, just to see what happens. So again, I'm going to go to events. I'm going to click. I'm going to say forever. I'm going to turn 15 degrees, and every time that I turn, I want to change the color to. I'm going to change the color effect. And then after that, we're going to go to pen and we're going to go to stamp. I think that's it. So let's just quickly clear. Click on that. And we get this interesting shape over here. Okay, so you can make some amazing things with code, definitely with code. And we're going to look at some point, maybe next time also, we'll look more at animation and how you can actually make, we don't have to just turn, we can also look at things where we can actually move and then turn and move and then turn. And later on, a few weeks or maybe a week or so from now, we'll look at things called functions and we draw even more interesting and more beautiful shapes than this that I'm showing to you right now. Right, so do you have, are there any questions at this point in time? No questions? Not even one question? Okay, let me just quickly talk about something. Last time I showed this to you yesterday, there was some discussion around there's a new Scratch available on the web. It's called Desktop Scratch. Look, if you want to get the latest one, if you can, for Windows 10, that's fine. By all means, get it. But it's not going to change anything in terms of what we're going to do. A loop will still look like a loop, no matter which one you use, whether you use MBlock or Scratch 1 or Scratch 3, whatever. It doesn't matter. So get the one that you can get, use that one, whatever works is fine for you, because the things that I'm going to show you, it's not bound by a specific one. So you will be able to do this, what I've just shown you, you'll be able to do this in MBlocks, you'll be able to do this in Scratch. It doesn't make a difference to which one it is that you want to use. I'm going to see if I can just make another one quickly here. I just want to change the center and see what happens. Let's put it in the middle of, let's put it at the top of the triangle. I'm going to go back to scripts, click on my sprite, clear, and we get something like this. Okay, so the question is, how do you get to draw those sprites? Let me just quickly show you again if you've missed it, because I was a bit quick with that. So basically, in your sprite section over here, for new sprites, you can click, there's a new ones that you can load from the library. You can click this little paint message here, where you can actually draw your own one. So all I've done is I've literally just drawn a simple shape like this, and maybe a square like that, or circle, another circle like that. And then you just set the center of this particular thing here. And then that's it, that's your sprite. And then you just put the code in for that sprite and make it spin, and you get all kinds of interesting things. Okay. Okay, you're welcome. Right, any other questions? No? Okay, I think that's it for today. Thank you very much. You guys were awesome. Let me just quickly, I'm just going to put the slides up for you as well. You've noticed that I don't really use slides, but at the end of the slides here, you'll see that tomorrow we're going to be looking at this little guy here, how to animate him. And if you have any questions, you can please feel free to contact me. I'm happy to answer anything that you can pay it. All right. You guys are welcome, and yeah, I hope I see you again tomorrow. Hope you've learned something useful or interesting today. Thank you very much.